tongue bite my time, wearing a warning sign. Wait till the world is mine. Visions I vandalize, cold in my kingdom size. Fell for these ocean eyes. You should see me in a crowd. I'm gonna run this nothing down. Watch me make 'em bow. One by one by one, one by one by. You should see me in a crowd. Your silence is my favorite sound. Watch me make 'em bow. One by one by one, one by one by. Count my cards, watch them fall. Blood on the wall. I like the way they are. Tell me which one is worse, living or dying.
It took God 7 days to create paradise. Let's see if I can do better. Enchantress.
Oh, baby, I think you're pretty.
You see what you're doing? Playing my ego? It won't be played.
I'm okay. I'm not your baby. If you think I'm pretty,
Yeah.
you should see me in a crowd. I'm gonna run this nothing down. Watch me make 'em bow. One by one by one, one by one by. You should see me in a crowd. Your silence is my favorite sound. Watch me make 'em bow. One by one by one, one by one by.
Do your worst, bitch.
I'm gonna run this nothing down.
I hope I haven't broken this place.
Watch me make 'em bow. One by one by one, one by one by. You should see me in a crowd. Your silence is my favorite sound. Watch me make 'em bow. One by one by one, one by one by.
Hello, everyone. We are going to talk some a little bit harder topics today than just not necessarily hard, but more controversial subjects than maybe normal. But I want to thank Gentry for coming on. She does have a YouTube channel. By chance, could Leo or Hood of Justice or Robert, somebody put the link in the chat and I will pin it. But I want to make sure you guys check her out. She does a great job. For as much as we disagree, we get along just fine. And that's what I kind of want to show with this, that there is a normal to be able to talk to people and have a conversation. So how are you today, Gene?
I'm all right. I'm all right for the most part. It's been a pretty quiet weekend. I think most people are familiar with him, but this is my cat, RJ. Hello, RJ.
Yo.
Yes, he is. And I just wanted to just sort of like get one more thing sort of out there. And this may, how do I put it? This may give a explanation on how I see things, but just for like, um, I guess transparency it would be the term. And I figured I would just bring it up at the forefront. My
Hmm.
brother, Jesse Wolf, is actually a independent comic writer. I don't think he's done anything Marvel or DC or anything, but he does have his own, independent books and whatnot. So I actually am related to a comic writer for whatever that is worth. So I just wanted to just bring that up.
Oh, that's very cool. That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so I just wanted to sort of just mention that on the outset before we get into everything. And one more thing, because I do live with a sick individual, you may hear some coughing or yakking, or I may be calling briefly for some reason. So keep that in mind. Hopefully, none of that will really be an issue here. But like I've said before, my life is crazy, so I don't know. So I just want to sort of just get all of that out in the open early before we get started.
Oh, that's wonderful. You know what? Actually, another thing I want to say is I did post this in my community post, but just there's no there's no I don't want any hate sent. Actually, Gene, you're the first. I've offered my like to have this conversation with plenty of people
Mhm.
that are, I guess, think a little differently than I am, and you're the first to come on. So I really
Oh,
appreciate that. So no hate whatsoever, but um basically what this whole thing was brought up about is you posted a article about Gabe
right,
El Taib,
right.
and it was from Bounding into Comics. And ju- just being myself, I just put Bounding is a joke. The,
You did.
and yeah, just as much as Bleeding Cool is a joke. They're kind of the same side of the other coin, right?
Right.
So
So
that's kind of what I'm
no,
sorry.
no. Continue.
No, so basically my whole thing was they are extremely right wing,
Okay.
and they don't hide any sort of bias or put any sort of apolitical news out there, and that's my issue with it. It also is a lot of like rumoring and sending hate towards people, like recently with the woman that did an interview with Matt Fraction and Kelly Sue DeConnick. And then they double down and send even more hate. And that's where my issue is with it. I don't
All
consider
right.
them a news source. I consider them very similar to like We've Got This Covered.
Fair enough. I've read We Got This Covered. My I guess contention might be that, especially in the exchange that we had, was that I had when you said bounding is a joke, and I said, okay, I acknowledge that everyone has a bias, and I even said, if you know of a more neutral source, let me know, because what you just said is, from my perspective, a list of accusations, but my question is, where is the proof of it? Because the reason I, I shared that article was not because it's necessarily bounding in the comics and I trust them implicitly, was because they were
Right.
reporting a story about Gabe Talib, which was the same story, and I posted a link from Bleeding Cool, which is on the opposite end, and they were sharing what was understood about him leaving DC at that time. My comment even said, "Are they wrong?" I never said that they don't have a bias or that I don't have a bias or anything like that. What I said was basically, give me the prove what you're saying. Your response to me immediately after that was, you are blind to the obvious. So that kind of took me back, because I'm like, how am I being blind to the obvious when I'm acknowledging that A, everyone's got a bias, and two, I'm asking for a more neutral source if you're aware of one. So that's why I said I'm leaving this open to you, because you sort of, from my perspective, you sort of threw the gauntlet down about that, especially saying that I'm blind to the obvious. So enlighten me, open my eyes.
Well, that's what I'm bringing up Bounding right now. If you
Okay.
let me share my screen. It'll make it a
Okay.
lot easier. I do think that they report extreme, like you have I haven't got down quite to the original article.
Okay.
I believe this was it, right?
That might have been the one. Yeah, yeah, I believe that's the one.
I think, and then there's actually a couple after this that I want to show. The problem,
Okay.
it's the exact same problem I have with Bleeding Cool. So I don't want to sound like I'm defending one or the other, because I won't defend Bleeding Cool.
All right.
Is that they use sources as they are definitive. Use a lot of things like, not only this, talking about Comicsgate here and a lot of stuff, and I've had my fair share with Comicsgate. You know,
Yeah,
I've had my with them.
I know. I saw it. I know.
Initially, Comicsgate may have been in. I don't know. Maybe they were genuine at one point, but at that point, it's been long gone. My issue. Oh my god! All right, you know what I'm gonna have to do? Hold on. I've got some articles up from about representation. I have to get out of them right now because my computer's being slow.
Okay.
All right, let's see if that works. Okay, there we go. My issue with them is they 100% believe, without a matter of any certain opinion, anything that comes from that group, right? And they don't report. Oh my god, it keeps saying your page isn't responding. And then they go on
So it sounds
to report, and this is
so
go ahead.
if I'm understanding what you've said thus far, it seems to me that your contention with Bounding into Comics is that they are more or less a Comicsgate mouthpiece. Is that what you're trying to convey?
Part of it, but they're also very down on queer characters, completely down on queer characters.
Can you give an example? Because criticism is not necessarily rejection of an idea.
Oh, absolutely. But that's
yeah.
telling me in multiple. This is what I hate. This is what Bounding into Comics does too. The right claims that there's no cancel culture on the right.
Okay.
But when you have something come up like, are you there?
What I'm seeing here, it looks like you're going between two articles, and one of them is about resurfaced tweets revealing Netflix walkout organizers' anti-LGBTQ comments. So what in and of this that is objectionable? I've seen plenty of news sources that are not right leaning or not comics related, covering that and reporting more or less the same thing because it deals with the whole Dave Chappelle drama. So what is wrong with that headline when it's the same story appear different news
because
sources?
It's participating in something they say they're against. If you're against cancel culture, then and you say that, oh, how did they go back 8 years to someone's tweets and then do the exact same thing?
Sorry?
You're really laggy. You're really laggy.
Sorry.
If you're going to say that you're against cancel culture and then report on something that is engaging in cancel culture, you have zero credibility.
But wouldn't you only have zero credibility if you participate in it? People report on things all the time. If
that
I'm
is participating.
What you're saying,
they don't have to report that article. That is participating in cancel culture.
I don't understand. Let me get my words out. I don't understand that particular logic. By that logic, you would be arguing that, for example, if the news report crime, say murder,
I'm saying new resurfaced tweets.
On that event. Wait, explain this to me, because I'm understand. What exactly is your viewpoint here?
That for this article specifically, that they're literally participating in what they say they hate.
By reporting on the same story?
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't want to participate in cancel culture, then don't participate. It is that easy. You don't have to write that article.
I disagree. if they are reporting on the same thing, everything everyone else is reporting on, it would be different if someone working for them engaged in that behavior, but
They
if you
have
are
before.
on something that you are observing that everyone else is covering because it's a big news story.
You don't have to report that. It is that easy. If you claim to be against cancel culture, then be against cancel culture. Don't say new resurfaced tweets.
Again, I disagree with your argument. How reporting on something is
So
participating
if somebody
in it. It's that mean words are
then that literally means there is no cancel culture. Because all of this stuff, like with Hatley Sawyer, when it got all the media attention, then there's no cancel culture. It's fake. That makes no sense.
This is a place where we're sort of going to be on loggerheads.
What'd you say? I'm sorry, you were breaking up there for a second.
This is going to be one place where we're at loggerheads or we're at odds. That's all.
Let me change. Let me see if I can get. They're saying that it's echoing. Let me see if I can try to see if there's anything in my settings real quick. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I took off high resolution audio. I don't know if that'll help. I know. Okay, so are you okay now? Does that sound a little bit better? Am I echoing to you?
No, you always sounded fine.
Okay. There I don't know which end it was at. I just seen someone saying they were echoing. Okay. So my issue with cancel culture is they do this thing where they find, like, there was a story a while back, and you'll probably remember. There was a girl, and I'm not a Star Wars person, but there was a girl that was doing like a podcast for Star Wars, and she had like a bunch of tweets resurface that were like discriminating against white people. Do you remember what story I'm talking about?
There have been so many different stories about that in general. I honestly couldn't tell you.
Okay. All right. Well, even so,
like
they went bounding into.
There have been like so many people at Lucasfilm that have gotten in trouble for that. The only one I can think of that comes to mind relatively recently was Christina Ariel.
Yes.
Do you mean her?
Yes, I do. I knew it was Christina. Thank you so much. Bounding in the Comics went through her, and it's good. It would take me a while to find, but I can if you want. Went through her tweets and looked for anti-white rhetoric to report on. That is cancel culture, because these things are old. You've got people like going through the James Gunn. That is cancel culture. Reporting on that, unless you're doing it in something that is up to date, if you're reporting on old, resurfaced anything that is more than maybe a year old, that is essentially cancel culture. A lot of what we've seen when it comes to Hartley Sawyer getting fired for The Flash, old resurfaced tweets. You would consider the Hartley Sawyer situation cancel culture, right?
I would have to look at each individual situation. I don't remember all of the details and whatnot surrounding it. I don't like to comment on something like that without proper content and context. I am not of the opinion that, as a rule, that if tweets resurface, that it is automatically cancel culture. In some instances, I believe it is. I believe it isn't. I would have to look back and see all of the facts of the story to make that determination.
I mean, that's a good point, but I would say that was one that was pretty silly, and that's why I used that situation. I think I believe it was Sky Jackson that was like going through a bunch of people's old stuff. And she was like,
something about Sky Jackson. Yes, I remember something about that, but again, I wouldn't want to comment on
right. No, I totally get it. No, right. I completely respect that, but this, just like somebody like Sky Jackson does, that's what these people did with that Christina I'm sorry, I don't remember her last name. And
yeah.
and anything that's old and resurfaced, if you are, in my opinion, reporting on it, and I've been guilty of it too. I can't even say I haven't. You're basically engaging in that cancel culture.
I think I can understand your position with that. I can't agree with it, especially given my professional experience, literally assisting in investigations where people bring up incidents from the past to explain why they're making an allegation now.
Right.
I that is literally a part of professional work. So
I know it
maybe
is.
it's
I
just
actually did know that.
like putting like professional gene brain on, but again, without all of the available information or content or context, I personally am not comfortable with saying all resurfaced tweets or videos or whatnot are without, without a doubt, 100% always cancel culture. I am not a fan,
Oh, I
generally
agree.
speaking, of absolutist statements. So with
Oh no, I
that,
agree 100%.
right. I'm just saying it seems to be your position is if they in any way even just reporting that seems to be your argument that even just reporting on it is in this way participating in, I guess, spreading that information around. Is that what you're trying to
Yes.
say? Okay.
Yes.
And like I said, while I think I understand your position, I cannot agree with that. It's a case by case basis for me. Whenever I'm looking at an article, I'm looking at regardless of the source or their liberal leanings or conservative leanings or whatnot, I'm looking at, is the information that they're reporting on more or less the same as what we about this generally at this time. I am very similar to the way I would look at information or proof or accounts that I look at it and at my job. That's why I listed Bleeding Cool and Bounding, because they were reporting the same story. They were sharing the
Right.
same, which is public, of Gabe being on Ethan's stream saying that he was leaving DC. Neither side was misreporting, from what I could tell. Neither side was misreporting that particular story. So from my end,
That particular story, but I started the conversation off was Bounding in his comments in general was a joke. Writing stuff like
right, but
writing
I'm just
go ahead.
right. I'm just my motivation for sharing that was not rooted in any sort of political bias. I was just looking for
Right.
information about that particular incident with Gabe. They reported it. It was the same as other sources. I shared that. Now again, I'm looking for or waiting for definitive proof that objectively speaking they engaged in lying or undue bias or anything like that. So far, what you've given to me is your opinion. It is in your that to even share research as part of news reporting is to participate in culture. You're entitled to your opinion, but that is subjective.
Of course it
For
is.
example, it's share. So so
Right.
so what I'm looking for objectively, what have they done so wrong, so egregious? And so far, what you are giving me is your sub. Yeah, I can speak. Subjective viewpoint.
No serious business would I literally put their title as Tom Taylor's Idiocracy. When I see something like that in the original one for
It is
John
okay.
was John Kent is into dudes. If that is the
Okay.
media, then I have an issue with it. And not just this. I'm talking about in general. Not only that, but we see
But that is the
a
media. CNN, for example, has
I
posted
don't use
headlines.
CNN.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying in general. CNN has, and they're supposed to be a professional news organization. I personally
I mean,
have
maybe at one time.
But yeah, I'm just saying the way they present themselves. I mean, I'm not saying they actually are. I'm saying that the
So
way they
here's a good example.
Okay, okay.
What they're trying to convince you of in this article is that these are bad first orders. But if you actually, and I can get my video here. I
I saw the
have,
video. I saw it.
okay. These are not, they're trying to play it off like this is a bad thing. Like these are bad comparatively. When they don't divulge any information that the 68,000 do not include second print, third print, or fourth print. They do not divulge the information that they don't put any sort of reorders in there. They don't divulge the information that at the end of Bendis's run, it was settled in the lower 5,000 or 50K runs. They make it seem like this is a bad first order when it's not. When it's not.
But
They compare it to,
okay, but I've seen other videos. Like I think was it Wes from Think Critical. I think he did a video on the sales numbers that would argue different. None of the things that you're bringing to my attention are necessarily objective. It seems to be just matters of
it literally is. They're not giving you the full story. What they're doing is shaping it to their narrative. It is absolutely an objective truth that they are not putting in here, that these numbers don't include any sort of reorders, when all the numbers that they're showing, you can't compare them to because they do include reorders. They do include second printings. That is it's a lie. It is absolutely a lie. They're not had they just said these don't include pre-orders, it wouldn't have been an issue. But they compare it to numbers that are finalized numbers instead of preliminary numbers.
All right. Well, I will give you, how do I put it? This is something that, like anything else, I would have to dive in deeper for my own sake to better understand first the business side and the sales. But I will give you that perhaps they are seeing the numbers in that instance. I am not familiar enough with the business side and the sales and all that to necessarily say you are wrong. I will say that much.
Well, and then on top, no, I had a little chart, but and then on top of it, they talk about how it dropped to a 41% when you see how I think they up here they say it's pathetic, right? That it dropped 41%. That's actually normal.
That's normal.
That's pretty normal. They wish for around 20 or 30 to 40%, but that's not a terrible drop. That's maybe a little bit below average. It's far from pathetic. And if you look at Bendis's run, his percentage is 59%.
That it fell?
What's that?
50. You were saying that with Bendis, his percentage was 59%. So are you saying that his numbers dipped 59%?
His number, yeah. Yes, and actually, and that's dropping off number one because number one was an anniversary issue. So that's really not fair. If you include that anniversary issue, that would be 92%, and that's not fair.
Okay, like I said, you may have an argument there. If you're willing to like email me like links or stuff privately, I can look into it for my self. So
yeah, absolutely, that's not an issue. I actually show all the numbers. I think I showed all the numbers in my video. If not, I can email you the links on Comic-Con because they've got everything up to date except for you can only go to issue number 2 when it comes to Kal-El, Senna Kal-El, because the numbers aren't out for 3 yet. But yes, being
okay, that's fair.
yeah. So the problem I have it with is something simple like that eschews audience to believe what they do. And it's not just this time. Like, this isn't the first time I've noticed something like that. That one bugged me just simply because I had been reporting on the numbers.
Okay.
And what
that if you
and what I had.
Okay.
Well, and then on top of that, you got the trickle effect, right? You report on something egregious, don't give all the information, and then you have 7 other people reporting on that, right? You have people with 1 million subs reporting on that. And then when I actually report the real numbers, I get discredited because of that. And it all starts from this simple spot. And this isn't the first time. They did the same thing with Zoe Kravitz. They mistook her words, saying that, and she said almost the exact same thing at DC Fandom, and they didn't do it again because she didn't use the word fetishize.
Okay.
This is something that they do on a normal basis where they may not necessarily outright lie, but they withhold enough information to make something seem a little bit worse, a little bit more towards what they want it to believe.
Okay, let me ask you about this then, because I did remember hearing in passing about Zoe Kravitz, something about not wanting Catwoman to be fetishized. So, since you seem to cover this and certainly be more passionate about it, especially being Catwoman than I am, what exactly did Bounding askew or misreport in your opinion? Because I know when I heard that, and I didn't hear it from Bounding, I heard it from other sources and tweets and whatnot. The first thing I thought about when I heard that she didn't want Catwoman to be over fetishized, the first thing I thought was, does she know what archetype the character is? She's always had sex appeal and a fetish appeal to her. Is that a misstatement? I mean, she walks around with a whip and in a suit.
And literally in the same article, Zoe Kravitz was naked. It had nothing to do with not wanting to see the male gaze. It had nothing to do with it. She said, I want her to be a full, fleshed out character. And instead of reporting that part, they leave that out.
Okay, so you're saying that she expounded upon it, she said more, and they didn't include that.
And then she went on to talk about how excited she was for the role, what she was working with Matt Reeves, how everything went. None of that was reported upon, just the fetishized part, which starts again that trickle effect. And if they'd have done 2 minutes of due diligence and went back to the original article, or even linked the original article, they would have seen her nude in multiple photos. It has nothing to do with the male gaze, and that's how it was reported upon.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. Now, my question to you is, okay, since in your opinion, Bounding is just the right-wing version of Bleeding Cool, what, in your opinion, is a reliable, mostly objective, neutral source that can be trusted to tell the truth?
The Mary Sue.
I don't believe that.
I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. I swear to God. Sorry. There isn't one. I'm sorry, there isn't. The only thing you can really do is, unfortunately, when it comes to me doing like a video about it, I'll make sure I do my due diligence and check out maybe both sides, and then check out maybe the website or read the book or whatever it is. There really isn't. I think comicbooknews.com does a pretty good job. They cover everything. I think that is the best one I've found. Screen Rant is also a good one, but then again, they also, from time to time, they're annoying too. So I don't think there is really a good, like, nerdy news website out there. Batmannews.com is really good also. Popped by Culture is another one that's pretty good too. And it seems like the ones that are actually good are the ones run by fans, not journalists.
Okay. If you can link me those two, that'd be good.
Yep, I absolutely can. It's really, really hard to find one that are that don't have a bias. And I think that's why it's so important to give those fan sites, because of course they're going to have their bias. Just like if I ran a fan site, I would definitely be still loving on Catwoman or Batman, but they at least give it from a perspective of somebody that's not looking at it through maybe a political lens or a agenda. I don't know how do you say agenda or a narrative lens. There we go, narrative.
Okay.
They're just fans.
Right, but fans can have their viewpoints about
absolutely
clouded by their politics or their feelings about social issues as well. So, like you said, in truth, there's no such thing as a truly neutral um, source. So, I guess the best thing that us can do is just when it comes to topics that we interested in or knowledgeable of, to just look into it for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that's hard, and I know it is, and I know it takes extra time, and sometimes you just want to read the article and be like, okay, well, I trust these people, but unfortunately there's not a lot of news we can trust anymore, not even just geek culture in general.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's I don't think there's ever been a time in our history where we've been this low on actual media, having to do so much research for ourselves and then still not knowing the truth. It's really a shame, but I don't like bounding. I'll be the first to say that. And it's not necessarily because they mean to, but they always are the beginning of a trickle effect that ends up being like, oh my God, you're wrong on this. You're wrong on this. And that's what drives me insane.
Okay, I can certainly understand that, especially given your experiences. If people are taking their word as the gospel, which keep in mind nobody should be taking any news source as the gospel, and then sort of going, they're the experts. What do you know? I can certainly understand why you would be frustrated.
Oh yeah, it definitely is, and I think, and that's why I think it's like I said, it's so important to I say this way too often, but it's so important just to take a step back and look for yourself, look it up yourself, compare whether it's numbers or whatever. Just pay attention. Everybody, don't trust anyone, and that sucks, but that's the world we live in.
Don't go to Boston. DTA. Don't trust anybody.
No kidding. It's terrible, but it's the truth. So let's talk. Let's move on to the next subject. Do you want to? Nah. I'm gonna let you. Or you know what? Let's just keep on this started off with Jonathan Kent.
Okay.
Let's talk about your feelings when it comes to him coming out as bisexual. So state what your feelings are on it. I know I watched your stuff, but I'm just saying.
I mean, I've pretty much, spent what, like 20, 30 minutes plus opining on a bunch of things, including that. But I would say that when it comes to, there's like a bunch of things that I have opinions on about this. First of all, I don't like the fact, and perhaps this goes to your point about honest reporting. A lot of articles and a lot of videos from YouTubers, both of those I follow and those I don't, kept reporting this as bisexual Superman, right?
Right.
Because they understood that Superman is a big name, right? Everybody associates Clark Kent with Superman. So that title, whether they intended to or not, gives the misrepresentation that Clark Kent has been retconned to be bisexual, yet plenty of people, YouTubers, IN, plenty of news sites or news sources, you may want to say, use that because it gets attention. That's exactly why I didn't title it that way. I made it clear in the video of my title that it was John Kent, not Clark. Now, so there's that. So maybe that speaks to your point about dishonest reporting, because
right.
It's one of those things where it's technically correct, but it's also wrong because people come to the wrong assumption about it on its face.
Right.
So there's that. But if I had to sort of sum up
I'm sorry.
on, by John Kent, I would say that it is not the idea itself that John Kent is bisexual that necessarily bothers me. I have no real issue with that, so long as it makes sense for the character. From my perspective, the way I see it is this: they age. I don't know how old he was in Super Sons, around 10 or 11, maybe.
Right.
But now he's sort of reintroduced, right? Clark has left him to look over Earth for whatever reason, and now he's aged up at the age of 17, right? So we've lost 5 6 years. You have no idea what happened in his life at that time, and all of a sudden now he's bi bi bisexual, right? And my thing is, it's like there's just no here. There's no bridge to link this. He's 11 one minute, 17 the next, and now you're saying he has to find sexual orientation. And it's like, okay, how did we get here? I think I saw a comment from you in someone else's video. I forget who it was. It might have been Wes or somebody. But uh, if I think you had said something about, or maybe it was one of your live streams. You had said something about, John was a child, right? Why would you focus on a child sexual orientation, right? So the way I look
Hmm.
at it, okay, we have this thing that we've all been through and we've all seen dozens of times or hundreds of times, called the coming of age story. If there had been a coming of age of John growing up and exploring his sexuality or in love for the first time, right? Feeling physical sexual attraction to anyone for the first time, and they had built up to this, I think that it still would have been controversial, I think. But I think it would have been an easier pill to swallow if there had been that build up instead of
How do you
just,
know we're
oh,
not getting that right now?
several years later, and suddenly he is bi. And then there's the fact that it's been used by people for and against the change as marketing and pandering, and that probably is the part that pisses me off the most. It cheapens it, in my opinion. Look,
Agreed.
he's bi, and now we get all this attention, right? We get all this attention. I Unless it's a romance arc, I do not care about the orientation of any character. I don't care if they're bi, straight, asex, poly, none. I don't give a damn unless it makes sense to the story. That's what frustrates me when stuff comes like this and the focus is on the orientation or their gender identity, like the trans Amazon thing. In my opinion, it puts the emphasis on the wrong syllable or syllable, as it were. We focus on the wrong thing, right? The focus should be John Kent, right? Him inheriting the title of Superman from his father. What's the focus? John is bi. Whether you want that to be the focus or not, that is the focus, and that is what frustrates me. I believe that
Yeah.
that reveals like this should be kept in story. Let people read it and come to their own conclusions about it. Don't plaster it around because it's Pride Month or it's LGBT History Month or whatever month is assigned for whatever group. That's the thing that pisses me off. Let me enjoy the story, please.
And I understand that, but here's the thing.
Okay.
This is his coming of age story. This is 17, still a child. We're still learning about it. The whole cynicism I have behind it is they did it for sales for key comics. You're using someone's sexuality to exploit sales. And that's my biggest problem. Also, I think it's a little weird that they didn't they take the opportunity to age him up another year or two because we're talking about the sexuality of a child. He's 17. Even all of that aside,
Talking about the sexuality minor, not necessarily a child, but maybe aging him up to
yes,
18 or 19 might.
exactly. It would
We
have
all
been an easier pill to swallow.
maybe at least he would be a legal adult at that particular point. But then again, it's like we've been having high school dramas in American media for God knows how long. I'm certain you've seen Buffy.
But we've also been having the ability to know a sexuality in a character for just as long. We've always known that Clark and Lois were going to be together. It was always part of their story, their romance. I don't see any
Yeah,
difference
yeah.
between that and this.
Their romance, not necessarily their sexual orientation. Romance is a
That
journey. Romance is a journey. A sexual orientation is simply a part of one's identity that dictates who and what type of person you are attracted to if you were looking to engage in that journey. You can be heterosexual, or gay, or bi, or anything else and not have a romance arc.
right, but there's nothing in the comic coming out and having him say, I'm bi, let's explore that. We are seeing the romance part of it. It was the media that spun it for he's bi, he's this. This, what
Are
we're
we seeing
seeing
the
right
romance
now,
part? Are we actually seeing the like falling in love
yeah,
part?
we're
Because
seeing the
it seems
exchange.
Jesus Christ, I can speak. At best, to me, this seems like very rushed. Like they're
Oh,
dating
I
and
agree.
they're fighting. So I'm like, okay, maybe it should come from the old school, but isn't True Love's kiss comes at the end of the story? What is that journey?
I mean, we're seeing it in part, but yes, I do agree that it is rushed. But I also think if you were going to do this to a character, this is a lot better than what we've seen with 35 canonical years of Robin being a straight hetero male. And when it comes to this, he is a blank slate. He's a blank slate when it comes to who he's attracted to. We actually, I mean, what bugs me is the exploitation, and we don't know that he's even bi. Maybe he's pan, maybe he's this. But
That's
they
fair.
exploited that bi label because, and they did the same thing with Robin, because with Robin, at the end of the story, it was, let's go on one date. It wasn't, I'm in love with you. There was no kiss. It was, let's go on one date and see where this leads.
I know.
That's it.
Yeah, I agree. I did not understand making Tim Drake bi outside of getting the headline of a bi Robin or a gay Robin because the way and I think I said this in the video I did covering it. The way I look at it is, okay, if he's still in a relationship or even just has feelings for Stephanie Brown,
Mm-hmm.
then if he's bi, he's still going to be attracted to her. He's still going to be
Right.
drawn to her. Feelings aren't just going to die just because he's attracted to a man. And he literally says in the comic from one of the panels I saw, I don't know why I broke up with my girlfriend. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, and that's exactly what we see is the idea that he can go on one date to find out if that's even something. Now, of course, it's DC. He's not going to be not interested. But I'm just saying that's all it is at this point. And until we see anything further, we don't know what he's going to be, unless, of course, we have something like on, what was it? Was it Bi Visibility Day or National Coming Out Day? I can't remember.
I think it was not
Where they come out. I think, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. Where they come out and they do, and I have no issue with John being gay or bisexual. I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea. I think it will separate him from his father. I think it'll be a new story to tell, and I think if anybody can do it, Tom Taylor can tell that story. But my issue is exploiting it.
You are much more optimistic about Tom Taylor's writing abilities than I am. Let's just put it that way. But I certainly agree that the exploitation of it was very, very, very gross. But this is what industry does. I mean, I happened to come across an LA Times article about the Eternals movie coming out that I have absolutely no interest in,
Mhm.
and all it can focus on is the diversity and how, what is it, some character named Fastos has a husband. I'm like, can you? It's like, can we stop? This is not information that I need to know to get me interested in a movie. Unless it's a romance film or an erotica or something, I really do not flipping care if he has a husband or whatnot. Let that be.
But some people do.
Sorry.
And I think that exploitation of the media really gives people a little bit of like pause, right? They're like, okay, well, it's not necessarily the media's job to get us excited, right? So they're reporting on what they want to report on. The issue I have is that's the only thing they report on, right? Sometimes we see, even when it comes to YouTube channels, everybody will report on the drama, but nobody will review the movie. It is just because unfortunately it's capitalism, right? It's what gets clicked. People on both sides click on that and go, oh my God, we're talking about a diversity again. What the hell is this? And click on it. People are like, yay, diversity, and click on it. It happens all the time. And then we go back to the exact same subject we had earlier with the problems with the media. As far as the comic goes, it hasn't been terrible. I do think that 4 was the best issue so far. I think that
what?
What's that?
Of what? Son of Kaya?
Yes. I think it's awesome that we saw Tom Taylor bring in Wink and Airy from his Suicide Squad run, which I absolutely loved. I think I have a lot higher regard of Tom Taylor because I haven't read his Marvel stuff, and his stuff at DC has been stellar. So I think that's a lot of the reason. But I know there was that like, it smells like mustard and bigotry. Yeah, that's cringe. I know there was an issue with that. But his stuff at DC, there's nothing I can complain about. Even his Dark Ages at Marvel, issue 1 and issue 2 have been fantastic. So I think if somebody's going to tell this story right, I would prefer it be somebody like Ram V or something else. But I'm all for it. Give us a different story. We know what Clark stands for. Now tell us what John stands for. Tell us why.
Right, but that's the thing. What does John stand for? We don't know. They're not even giving us an idea of what he stands for.
Oh yeah, they are.
Outside of a certain sexual orientation.
Well, yes, they are. In the comic, they're talking about with Henry Bendix.
Okay, let's say this because I haven't read the book. I'm not a fan of Tom Taylor's writing. I will leave it to you since you are the one who you said there are 4 issues out.
Correct.
Let me put a challenge to you. Outside of John Kent's bisexuality, give me a reason, pitch to me why I should even check out this book. Even 1 issue of it. Go.
Well, we've got Henry Bendix from the Wildstorm universe. Very cool. It's kind of very similar, at least in part so far, to his Lex Luthor. We're seeing the idea within Infinite Frontier, which is where all of this began, Infinite Frontier 0, that there is a line, and we're going to explore the ideas of tyranny. Not necessarily like Twitter tyranny. I'm talking about the ability to change minds without making somebody change their minds. The ability to inspire a better change.
Okay. All right. Good pitch.
Yay. No, I do think that a lot of people are harder on it when they haven't read it, and I don't think it's perfect. It's far from perfect, but it's far from the worst thing that I've read in a long time. So I'm curious to see how this goes. I think the media plays a lot into this, and that's really unfortunate, but it's the truth.
Okay. All right. So since we are talking about media representing the LGBTQ community, I guess we can move on to the trans Amazons topic. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely. I was thinking the exact same thing.
Okay, then. All right, so I actually did read Nubia and the Amazons #1. To my knowledge, there's not another issue out yet, right?
Right. It just came out this week.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure. I actually took a few minutes this afternoon because to read it because I wanted to better understand the concept of the Well of Souls or the Cavern of Souls. So I know that the debate has been, would trans women or would trans people in general be accepted on Themyscira? And to my understanding, and I think I had a comment similar to this, but to my understanding, and again, I read the issue. I didn't think it was all that great personally. I guess it's them trying to like set the scene as nothing really happened, in my opinion. But
Right.
I understand it is, and again, you're the DC person, so if I'm wrong, let me know. My understanding is that traditionally, especially in main continuity, Themyscira is, huh? What happened? Oh,
Sorry, that was me. I'm bringing that up for it when it's been done before. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
okay. But to my understanding, in main continuity, which is what this story is taking place in, correct?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Themyscira, right? Paradise Island, the land of the Amazons. They are distinctly anti-man, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, according to what I was reading, and I read both the issue and I even read the DC wiki about the Well of Souls. Apparently, what the story is saying is that because you said in your review that it's totally revamping Nubia's origin and that she is now like
I
one
was
of.
wrong on that.
Oh, okay. But still, I read it, and basically it says that when a woman uh, is killed via an act of violence in man's world, right? The Cavern of Souls or Well of Souls resurrects them to a new body, and they don't remember their previous life. I know that the not remembering their previous life is shown in several panels in the comic itself. There are several women when they have the dinner going, "Do you remember?" I hardly remember anything. The memory is right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't. So like, everybody's having different experience on like different
Right.
levels, but nobody actually remembers anything of their previous life. So the way I puzzle it is this: if we have a trans woman, let's say, if we have a trans woman who is killed by an act of violence in man's world, she dies, and the Well of Souls gets her soul. If the Well of Souls somehow recognizes one's sincerely held personal belief about their gender identity and therefore resurrects them uh, on Themyscira as an Amazon, right? And they get a new body, not their old body, a completely new body, and their mind is effectively wiped about their past, and that trans woman, upon resurrection, is a biological woman. Themyscira does not accept men. A trans woman, objectively speaking, and I'm not trying to be rude or mean or anything, but if we're being, the trans prefix is there because a trans woman, objectively speaking, is born male, transitions to female at some point in their life. If this person is resurrected in a new body that would never be male because the Amazons can't stand men, that means that when she's upon resurrection, she's no longer a trans. The reason for the prefix is gone. She is a cis woman. She is a biological woman. She's an Amazon, and she wouldn't even remember her whole life of being trans. So I don't see how you have a trans Amazon. I hope that very long explanation makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. My what you're saying is correct. The Well of Souls goes are the Cavern of Souls as it was known before. I don't know why they changed it, but even so, um, goes back to the George Perez stuff, right?
All right,
So
that, yeah.
basically, and of course, with one issue, it's really hard to judge, but yes, she's going to eventually remember. She's going to eventually, there will be parts of her that will remember. So she will at some point be remembering her life as a trans woman in man's world and be able to know that. I think that's why that's prefix is there. But a lot of times when it comes to
But
trans
that
people,
still wouldn't make the person trans.
it would in their previous life. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's what they were going for.
I don't think so because I saw a few of the tweets from Just Some Guys video, and one of them, I think it was, what is it, Stephanie Williams? I think is the writer. It's
Williams.
Vita
Yep.
Ayala and Stephanie Williams, right? Stephanie Williams goes on this long rant about how the character Bia, and keep in mind, Bia has like no role in this issue. She's literally first introduced when at the dinner scene, and the closest thing that may give a hint about her being trans is that she gives some sort of speech about how she feels like she's finally got the life that she wanted, or something to that effect. It's one of those things where if you read it for the first time, ignorant of the drama, nothing would clue you into this person being trans or anything, right? Wanting the life you always want could be a bunch of things. It doesn't necessarily mean being trans. We
Right.
only knew B was trans because they revealed it via tweets. And honestly, I think it's just one of those things like what A. Rowling does on occasion. She'll just take some random question or topic from the books and go, "Oh, hey, yeah, it's this now." Hermione, she's black now, or whatever the issue is. I know that Stephanie, I think, goes. Bia isn't going. I'm kind of like summarizing her tweet. She's like,
Right.
Bia's not going to be a background character and all this other stuff, and I'm like, oh, now I know all she's going to be is a background character, most likely, because you are engaging in the classic "the lady doth protest too much." If she's
Well,
not going to be background, you wouldn't have to overtly state this so damned hard. You would just let the work speak for itself.
maybe, but they don't do that with Jonathan. So I think that's just kind of their gimmick. And I actually reviewed it and didn't even realize it until after the fact. So yeah, you don't understand. But I think that is exactly where we're heading, is that ability to learn her story. And when she has her memory, that trans being there is maybe something she wants, simply because her life experience from before is still important. So
I'm not saying it's not.
I mean, right. So
I'm not.
that's maybe up to her.
All right. I'm just going by what I understand of it and what you confirmed. Even if she remembers her old life, which like you said is most likely what will happen. They will remember what happened to them. It would just be that, okay, she was trans in her old life in man's world, which is literally dead to her, which would no longer apply when she's in Themyscira. When she was in man's world, she was not in Amazon. Now, on Themyscira, reborn, right, in a woman's body, biologically female body, she is not a trans woman anymore. That would literally be her old life. Wouldn't it effectively be dead naming?
I mean, no. Regardless of if it was her old life or not, that's still her lived experience. And if that's part of the story, then calling her a trans Amazon is not an issue. That may be part of what we learn about her. And if that's what the Well of Souls decided to give her a biological female body, then fine. You look at people even in real life right now, people that you would never guess that are trans, people like Blair White, beautiful woman, but
But
she still calls herself trans. It's
right,
just
right,
what
but
their lived experience
okay,
is
if
taken
you
away, and that
right, but here's the thing. Since you want to bring in Blair, that's true. First of all, though, Blair is very open about the fact that she's trans and understands that biologically speaking, she is still male. There is nothing
right.
modern science can do to erase literally how she was born, and she's been very open about that. But the fact of the matter is, again, not trying to deny the character's memories or lived experience. What I'm saying is that if technical, the new body they would be born in would not be the one of a trans woman. I'm not saying disregard the experience. What I'm saying is that that body that new life that she's embracing would not be a trans one. It would literally be her old life, which is what a lot of trans people leave in the past, right? For example, if you bring up that say Caitlyn Jenner, was once Bruce Jenner, you get called out, right, for dead naming.
I
Al-
get that, but we don't know, because we don't know the story. We don't, and I totally agree with you. Yes, her new body would be biologically female, but what I think the story they're going to tell is that she was in. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of violence, right? Obviously, with the Cavern of Souls,
right,
and
yeah.
that's the story that we're going to hear. The fact that she was initially in her life before she died, a trans woman,
When she
is
was in
why
the
they're calling that a trans Amazonian.
I understand why they're calling it that. It's simply incorrect. She would be at best a Amazon who, in her old life, when she was in man's world, was trans. It would literally be two separate lives. It's literally two separate lives, and one is quite literally dead to her. That's what I'm saying. You could say that she's an Amazon who, in her past life, was a trans woman. That would be accurate to the story that they're telling. But to call her a trans Amazon, when, like you said, technically that is impossible. That is the
Right.
that is where I feel okay. That's not an accurate descriptor, right?
Right. And I
That's the way.
agree with you. And I do, but I think that was on Stephanie Williams. The only thing I can appreciate about this, unless they go into some sort of genetic mutation where it is possible for a man to have XX chromosomes, I very seriously doubt they would go that deep. But
Don't put it past them. Don't put it
what's
past
that?
them. Don't put it past them. It's comics. You
Well,
can
I
come up.
mean, no, it's not comics. It's biology. Like there's different chromosomes like XXY, XXX, XXYY. There is a bunch of different syndromes where it can actually happen biologically in the real world. I don't think they will go that deep because that would be giving them too much credit.
Okay.
Honestly. But I think what we're going to see is that cycle of violence. Now, I, with this one, can honestly appreciate how they did it. They let the issue come out. They didn't do the whole, oh, this is going to be a key comic in 3 months. Here, let's announce it ahead of time. They let the story of Bia come out, and it wasn't a big media spectacle until a fan asked. So I do think initially, I don't know if initially they were going to let it come out, but they didn't make it a big deal beforehand. And I think that's where the a lot of the issue is with Jonathan, is they made it a big deal. This they didn't.
Okay. I will agree with you on that. But having read the first, there currently is no story about Bia. The story isn't about her.
Yeah, not yet.
There there was focus on Nubia being queen. This whole thing with the door to doomsday or whatever. That seemed to be the main, and just the general, bringing in the new recruits and putting them through their paces, right? But this Bia character, at least as of the first issue, has no role. Wasn't even introduced until later in the story during the dining scene where they get new names. So I don't think it's fair to say they you were saying something about this being Bia's story. No, it's not. It's not Bia's story. Not this is the biggest element that we know about her, and it goes back to my point about how we're talking about right now and have talking for several minutes about whether or not a trans Amazon can exist on Themyscira as we understand it. But we haven't been talking about Nubia.
Well, it's called Nubia in the Amazons, so it isn't just Nubia's story. It's about both, right? But the whole comic if we're talking about something, was about Nubia. There was I would say 70% of it. So I mean, it is a Nubia centered title, but it's not just her. And I don't see
I
it
understand that.
being an
No,
Go
continue.
ahead. I'm sorry. No,
Yeah.
I don't if it's unless even in Batman, right? Even in Batman, we've got people in and out all the time. Actually, Batman's been in a back seat to his own title. So this being called Nubia and the Amazons, learning about the Amazon, I don't have an issue with. I want to know the full story. Tell me everything. Make me like these characters.
I agree. That's not what I was trying to say. What I was trying to say is that you and I, for the past several minutes, have not been talking about the lead of the book, despite the fact that you and I both read this review of it. What I'm saying is that
Yep.
this issue of whether or not this character being trans makes sense, given what we understand of DC Comics and Themyscira, is overshadowing Nubia. That's what I'm saying. The topic of conversation is not about the lead of the book. It's not even about an important side character. Again, this be a character. I'm gonna swear, ain't done shit yet.
Right, but
We
it's
are
only issue 1.
Yeah, but she hasn't done a damn thing yet. At least we know that you know Nubia has like a counselor. I don't know if that lady is her advisor or her lover or whatever it is. But we actually see her interacting with like Nubia. We don't even see Nubia interacting with anyone.
Right, but
That's
it's
my
the only issue. But that's not an issue. Robert said, as Jeffrey Thorne said, wait for the story to end. We don't know the story yet, so we can't judge it preemptively. I mean, we can, but in a matter of speaking, we don't know. She may be, be right there with Nubia. She may be important to the story. So as of right now, the reason we're talking about it is because it's controversy and it's something we disagreed on. And until we know more about the story, until more issues come out, I think it's a 6-issue mini. There's nothing else there to say. You know what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, and what I'm saying is that we are talking about the wrong. That's what I'm saying. Issues like this take our attention and even our agreement or disagreement off of Nubia, off of the story. Neither one of us have said anything of value about the story. It's an example. I've been watching a lot of videos about Metroid Dread recently. I don't know. Are you familiar with the Metroid series of video games?
Yes.
Okay, so all the videos I have been seeing about Metroid Dread mainly focus on one thing. Samus Aran is a badass. All the videos focus on her in some fashion, whether it's playthroughs, whether it's lore videos, whether it's certain scenes like when she encounters a monster called Kraid, and she just shoots him. All of the focus and fan attention is that she is the lead. And what I am saying is that whether it is John Kent and his bisexuality, whether it is this topic of debate about transons, ultimately, all of us, whether we are for it or against it, are discussing the wrong thing. They called Nubia, but we haven't discussed one damn thing about Nubia. That's mentioned with all of this just as a thing. And we all play into it, whether we are
Right.
pro or against.
Right. I understand what you're saying, but the comics Nubia and the Amazons. So to learn her story, I have no issue with. And not only that, but this is a new thing, right? It's a new thing. It's the first time in continuity, because we've seen it in Earth 1, but it's the first time in continuity a trans woman was reborn through the Cavern of Wells, our Cavern of Souls, and put on Themyscira. So of course it's going to take up a little bit of our time. But I reviewed the comic. I talked about the comic. I reviewed Superman or Son of Kal-El. I reviewed that all. I reviewed a couple issues of it. So I'm still talking about what's important, which is, Nubia and the Amazons, the actual issue. I go through, That and Son of Kal-El. I'm still talking about those things. But because this is new, this is something we're talking about. If Samus came out and for some reason it was retconned that she was a trans woman, everybody would be talking about it. So
They used to try that.
What's that?
They actually tried that back in like the 1990s because there was some Japanese interview or whatever where one of these guys working on the game at the time, that was like rude Japanese slang for like a trans person, and saying it's sort of like in passing as a joke because she's very and so people for a while used to argue that she was the first trans gaming. It's like, no, that's Poison out of Street Fighter, arguably.
I had no idea. I was just using that as an example. I had no idea, but I'm just saying, like, because it's something new, just like getting any new shiny toy, you want to talk about it, and it's been a point of contention. So as long as we're still talking about what else is going on in comics, I have no issue talking about these things. We're still talking about Nubia. We're still talking about the Amazons. I'm still reviewing them. So I don't see that as an issue. Are you there? Jean? Hello? I think we might be experiencing technical difficulties. Robert, I am so sorry I did not get to your... We were just in the middle of conversation.
I guess it's the lag. I have no idea what you said.
I thought that maybe you lost connection. Can you hear me now?
Oh, no.
Okay, so do you want to talk about
I guess so.
the game?
See you. I don't know what the issue.
I think we're okay now. I think it caught up. All right, can you hear me now? Okay. Jean froze. Every time I hear Jean's name, I want to sing Michael Jackson. Billie Jean is not my... Okay, I won't put you guys through that. We'll let her figure out just quote Cyclops. Jean!
RJ, would you make up your mind? Are you...
She's going to start yelling at the computer like, how dare you! Robert, let me look at your... FWIW? I don't know what that means. I don't want John to be a clone of his dad. I don't either. That's why I think it's important to tell a different story. And I think that's what they're trying to go for. I just hope the execution is there, right? The whole he was of age is more being made as an argument against those who say...
talking to the...
Yeah, I was just kind of waiting to see if we could get you caught up. Everything good now? I'm just gonna start singing Michael Jackson.
Let me see. Let me refresh. No, because on my end you're coming through very broken. So I said, I'm new. So like if I try to refresh it or something, is it gonna break? It's gonna happen.
It might. I don't know. I've never refreshed it before.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to another topic.
What about you? Want to talk about Gabe?
Huh?
You want to talk about the Gabe El-Taib stuff?
Oh, yeah, sure, if you want to.
Okay, because I know we had a difference of opinion. It does seem like, if you guys haven't heard the situation, I very seriously doubt you have, but Gabe was the colorist for Son of Kal-El. And from my understanding, and you can tell it...
Right, he was.
Yeah, you can tell it different if I get some of the facts wrong or anything, but he went on a live stream with Ethan Van Sciver, went on and talked kind of shit about the characters and about the company, and they recolored his stuff, and basically he is not getting his contract renewed.
I can't hear you now.
Jane,
Huh?
can you hear me? I'm just gonna start talking mad shit about Jean. She'll never know.
Did someone say something about me? I can't see the chat.
No, I said I'm just gonna start talking mad shit about Jean. She'll never know. Well, is it really surprising? No, and I think that's where Jean and I disagree. You can't go behind enemy lines, so to speak, talk shit about the company, and then expect to have a job. Like, you just can't.
Oh no, I wasn't trying to say in any way that he was being professional, or that what he did was, when the news dropped, the debate was, did he, or was he fired? That was the question. From what I've seen and from what best I can tell, it seems to be a mix of both. I would say that going on a Comicsgate podcast, especially Van Sciver's, his history with DC, and I think I said it in one of the comments on your video, is that he basically pulled a "I'm mad as hell, I'm not taking this anymore, I quit." And then I think, like you said, DC fired him because of him being a leaker and his comments. So I think it's a mix of both. But the way it plays out, it's sort of like in relationships, it's like a "you didn't, I dumped you," that type of thing. But yeah, he's left DC, and now he seems to be with Comicsgate. My main thing was, did the motto, and all of the motto change, I should say. And from what I've seen from multiple new 5-minute video on it, yes, that was the straw that was back, it seems.
I mean, was it though? Like, and nobody's gonna admit, like, I quit because they made him gay. I don't know. From what he says, that's all we can really look at. But he also was in
anything about Kemp being gay being the reason for the video.
And why didn't he leak the new? Why didn't he leak the new motto? Why did he leak the part that Jonathan was coming out?
What?
Why didn't he leak the motto, the new Better Tomorrow? Why did he leak about Jonathan?
Are you asking why he left over that?
Figure drawing, and I tried to write you in the private chat. I don't know if it showed up though. Said your connection might be better if you switch to an avatar. I don't know how to do it on that end, but it might work a little bit better.
I'm willing to switch to an avatar. How do you do that? That's the question. How do you
you just switch
to an avatar?
Okay, there's like 5 little buttons on the bottom. And the first one is mute for mic, and the next one is enable camera. Press V, or enable. What would it be? The opposite of enable. She's got it. No, he didn't. Gabe leak. Yes, he did. Trey, he absolutely did. He admitted it, and so did Young Rippa.
Wait, what is
technical difficulty? She's got to pick out her best selfie, guys. Come on. That's me.
Very funny.
Stop thinking that people have something against gay people. I don't. I'm saying that the actions seem a little suspect when instead of leaking the new motto, he leaks that Jonathan would be gay. He also stood around and worked for humanoids, very, very ignited, like very, very left-wing stuff. He also stood around when Superman denounced his citizenship. So it just seems very weird to me. I think it would be a good idea to ask this stuff to Gabe directly. I messaged him and asked him if he'd come on. Nobody in Comicsgate will come on here. Are you kidding me? Ragaboom was supposed to, and he ghosted me too. So I'm like, I try to have people on to have conversations. I try, I swear. Well, pull up the video because I watched him and I didn't hear him say nothing. Go ahead and go to, I showed it in my last video. Go to Young Rippa. I could probably find it real quick. Let me look on my phone real quick. I can tell you which one where Young Rippa admits it. It is titled
I'm trying to get this
DC Color is the writing on the wall from 3 days ago. It's got Jonathan and Flash on the front. Oh, I know I'm not in his position or have his experience or family. I understand that. I'm just saying what I see in this situation. There is no Comicsgate when Soup denounced his citizenship. Right, but that doesn't mean he couldn't have quit. Like, that has nothing to do with it. What did he do to leave DC Comics? He leaked stuff. Gene, just hit the disable camera button. It's the second button. Or you can just press V.
I'm trying to let me. Will this switch? Is that
Fraga
okay?
is quite difficult to. No, it's not because we don't want to see you. Are you? You're so silly. There is a mute button. You can literally.
I'm just trying to figure this out.
I know. Press. Here, let me message you on the. Press V. It should do it for you. It's right next to the.
Press V.
It's okay. This is why I use this instead of something like OBS because I don't understand it. I am confused. What did Gabe do? Gabe didn't do anything besides, like, he didn't do anything like to okay, maybe he did. He leaked that. He was, remember when Van Skyver came out? Yes, Leo, you were correct. And said that Jonathan was going to be made by.
Oh, like that.
Yay!
Okay,
it was Gabe that leaked it.
All right. Right. Okay.
Okay. Are we good now? Let's try this.
I hope so. Let me just say, RJ's staring at me funny, so let me just deal with him for a second.
Okay, go ahead. Even the cameras are disabled now. Woke. What the fuck? I love it. Hey, she got it to work. All right, she's getting the kitty. Yeah, I remember it drove you insane. I know, and I think and I do think you have a point. I wasn't correct. EVS was. No, I meant you were correct when you said that it was EVS before bleeding into comics. I just apparently made that up. Bleeding Cool. I looked at the dates and you were correct. I think Teva, like, I get your point. You wanted to see Jonathan grow up. You loved him as a kid. I totally understand that. I think that would have been a lot smarter. But unfortunately, when it comes to DC, or actually a lot of it was, I don't know if it was more editorial or if it was more Bendis or what, but my bet would be a little bit of both, probably more Bendis. So Amber from Invincible sucks. That was super random. She wasn't great. She wasn't like a great addition. Like, who looks at their superhero boyfriend is like, I'm leaving you because you save people. I know that's not really what she said, but like, kind of like how I feel about a lot of America. Entitled little bitch, right? Bleeding into comics. I'm gonna make that website now. All right, let's see here. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Oh, well,
Sorry
yay!
about Hey, sorry
Broken
about that.
hammers. Oh, you're totally fine. You're totally fine. I was
All right.
just
But
driving everyone insane. Okay. All right. So I told my side on game. I don't think people should go, necessarily. I guess the best way to put it is behind enemy lines. I know that sounds like childish, but and then expect to have a job. Like it's silly. It's you can't
well,
exactly.
I don't think that he was doing those things intending to keep a job. Like I said earlier, maybe it didn't get through because of all of the laggers. But again, from best I can, seems like he put. I'm mad as hell. I'm not taking it anymore. I quit. I don't think I ever defended the way tenure ended or said that he acted professionally. He didn't.
Oh no.
He did. The issue is why did did he leave? And it seems he left because, at least according to the account, again, like I said before, the man made a video. It was because for whatever his reason, he's been there a while. Then dropping the American way from Superman's motto was the boiling point for him. That's all I was saying, right? It seems to me to be, and he got fired, or DC's justifying what they did by saying, well, he's a leaker and all this, right? And so we fired him. Like I said earlier, it's like you didn't dump me, I left you. That
Right.
that type of situation in relationships.
I mean, they're not justifying it. He literally did that stuff. Like he literally leaked stuff. So I get why. Let Superman be Canadian. I get why, but I also think like maybe that was just his boiling point. Maybe so. I get it, but I also don't think it's that serious. Like I know we have differences, but truth and justice have always been upon the facets, right? If even when you look at like it wasn't added into the serial. I did a whole like a stupid deep
You
dive
did a
on it.
great video on it.
Oh,
You did a great on the history of the motto. I view it as this: your argument to me from that video seemed to be very, I guess, the folk perspective, and maybe I'm wrong, but from my perspective, it seemed to be more about how many times it had been used or retired or brought back out throughout DC's history. And the way I look at it is this: it doesn't matter how many times technically they have used it. It doesn't matter if you go through every single action comic or superhero or action comics or Superman comic ever printed as of today and literally look through every page to see specifically when he has said it. It is about, like I've said a lot, about that he represents the American way. It's not an argument of, well, they used it in the 50s, and then they dropped it in the 60s, and then they kind of brought it back in the 80s. It isn't, from my perspective, that's not the argument. The argument is, what does Superman, in particular Clark Kent, Superman, the definitive Superman, represent? And to me and many other people, he does indeed represent truth, justice, and the American way. As I said in my video that I did about it, he gets his values and his views right from his small town Kansas American parents. He's an American hero. He is the definitive American hero. Every American hero, whether it's a ripoff or a deconstruction or reconstruction, whether it appears in a wrestling ring or whether it appears in a Japanese manga, the American hero is based off Superman. That
I
doesn't
mean,
change.
I would argue that Captain America is more of the American hero, but even so, I get it. You're saying he's basically these.
I'm not even a Superman fan. That's the crazy thing here. I have to make this impassioned defense of Superman, and I'm not even necessarily because I'm not a big fan of Paragon characters. My favorite characters are Batman, Wolverine, people like that. But as much as I love Cap, Cap is Marvel's answer to Superman.
Superman. Yeah,
Cap
I get that.
without Superman. That's what I'm
Right.
saying. He is the definitive, iconic American hero.
So
Every other
this changes now? Like he's not an American hero now? Like that's gone? Like why what makes you think that's gone?
It's not that it's gone. It's that DC is now more or less disavowing it. That's what people are upset about. That's never going to be gone. But now the very company that has owned him and has built him and created him over a literal lifetime, this character comes from what, the 30s, the 40s, are now saying, "Oh, truth, justice, and the American way." They literally said it. They're no longer using it as a motto. There is
For
nothing wrong.
now.
Yeah, and they'll probably bring it back, but it doesn't change what they've done.
Right.
There is nothing wrong with Superman believing in truth and justice and still being a representation of the American way, being American ideals. He can still be a distinct American hero while still helping the world. It doesn't mean that he's going over as a conqueror. It
I
means that
understand that, but he's not nothing's changed. Like nothing's changed, and it's not even something that we see Clark normally say. Like on a like really very rarely does Clark even say that.
You think nothing has changed when the very company that owns the character disavows the motto?
They've done it before. They've done it in the 40s. They've done it in plenty. I mean, they're not disavowing anything. They're just changing it.
They literally said they're not using it anymore.
Right, for now.
Not a disavowal?
They didn't disavow anything. Disavowing is like saying you don't want anything to do with it. They just changed it. And it's not even the first time.
They literally said in a tweet, Tristan, that they're no longer using the phrase.
For now.
Right.
They're not that's not disavowing anything. Disavowing is like saying they want nothing to do with it. They're not erasing it for the history. They're not doing anything.
That's what they are saying.
No, it's not. You're reading too much into it. You can't take someone's words and twist it.
Or you're not reading enough. Let's be honest here, Tristan. I'm gonna ask you a question. Because your viewpoint on this seems to be that it's not a big deal because you personally see no problem with it. That doesn't mean it's not a big deal to other individuals. I saw your video review. You made a very strong argument and you stated that you strongly disagreed with the creative direction as you understood it at that time about changing Nubia's origin, taking her from being distinct because she was the sister of Wonder Woman made from clay and all that other stuff, which made her unique, and now she's another woman who came out of the well. That was in your video. So
right, and I corrected my mistake.
Okay, but I'm addressing specifically what you said in the video. I'm talking about what you said in that video itself. You strongly disagree with that change. So what is wrong with me or other people disagreeing with DC's creative decision to drop the motto and therefore disavow a distinct part of Superman, of Clark Kent, which is his American identity? Just because they did a story where he disavowed his American citizenship in 2011 doesn't justify it. It was stupid then, it's stupid now.
I agree, but I don't necessarily. I don't have an issue with other people taking issue with it. I'm telling you my opinion and why I came to that opinion.
Okay. That's fine. And I'm of the opinion that he doesn't have to lose that phrase. I'm not saying you can't use a new one. Right? Like I said in the video. I think as a phrase, it's perfectly fine. And yes, it describes Superman. I never took issue with that. I take issue with how the phrase is being used, with how they are actively attacking the American way part, now saying that it doesn't apply.
They didn't attack anyone. They just said They're not using it right now.
I didn't say attack a person. I said attack that element of the phrase.
They didn't attack it. They never said we will never use it again. Thank you, figure drawing. They never said they won't ever use it again. They just changed it. Like, I get why people are upset. I get it. But they never disavowed it.
There is a big difference, and they didn't just change it. If they had just changed it, there wouldn't be a problem. They have stated, at least as of right now, they don't want the character associated with that particular phrase.
They never said that. They never once said we don't want the character associated with it. That would mean going back through years of continuity and changing it.
That's why I said currently.
Currently, right. Currently, that's what they're using. American ideals have changed since Superman was first introduced. American ideals have changed. The American dream has changed. What you or I see outside has changed. They're trying to evolve Superman with it. If it doesn't work, guess what? We've got a crisis coming up next year. That's kind of how.
So you evolve the character by taking this element of a phrase that people know him by and define him by, because the American reality never lived up to the American ideal. No reality lives up.
I never said that, though. I said it evolved.
I am not saying that you did. I'm just addressing the idea. The idea seems to be that because the American reality never quite lived up to the American ideal, that now the American paragon superhero can no longer represent the American way because the actual American people never achieved that. So long as
nobody said that. Nobody said that.
Okay. Then what are you saying? Specifically tell me right now. What are you
saying? It's comics. This isn't something new. We see this every few years. We've seen it 10 years ago. We've seen it 10 years before that. It always comes back. Comics work in a circular fashion. And I think a lot of it, people are assuming that it's anti-American sentiment when it was just used on basically another world, truth, justice, and tolerance. And I talked about that before. This is something that is done all the time. This is comics. This is how they work.
I know how they work.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying this is nothing new. They didn't disavow anything.
I never said it was new. I'm just saying that people have a right to be outraged about if they are so outraged. It's something that I, as someone who's not even a fan of Superman, strongly disagree with. As I said in the video, if he cannot represent the American values and American ideals, if they have to drop the American way from him for now, as you put it, then take Katana, the literal Japanese woman literally covered in Japanese cultural and national elements, and take that off of her. Take her sword.
That doesn't make sense.
Take her mask. That's the point, Tristan.
No, what you're saying doesn't make sense. They didn't change his outfit. They didn't take the blue or the red, or they didn't take any of that away. What we're talking about is a phrase, not an outfit. She doesn't say true justice in the Chinese way. She doesn't say that. So you can't, that's like comparing apples to oranges.
She's no. Because what I'm comparing is representation, national cultural representation. That phrase is the American way. Katana,
that's her costume, though. That's different than her actual. He still represents the American way.
It still represents a certain country. She represents a certain country.
And so does he.
His phrase, and therefore lose an element of American representation and any other hero DC has where their identity is tied to their country, they have to lose those elements as well.
No, that's stupid. And that's stupid. She's Japanese, not Chinese. I'm sorry. But I understand what you're saying, but you're equating something that doesn't make sense because he didn't change his costume. He still represents the American flag. Now, what I'm saying when it comes to this, is because I've seen this stuff done so many times, it doesn't bother me as much because I know we always go back to status quo.
And you're right about that. We probably will go back to status quo after there is outrage and after DC doesn't get the sales that they want. I agree with you there. But just because it's an idea that they've done before does not mean it's a good idea.
I'm not
A-
saying it is a good idea. I'm saying it doesn't bother me because it's nothing new.
That's what I'm saying. It's still a bad idea. It doesn't matter if it's new or not. It's still a bad idea.
Right, but this is, I mean, I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. And I don't mean any disrespect. And I know you're entitled to your opinion. But we've seen
Okay,
this stuff. Comics is gimmicks. We know
that's true.
that
That is true.
this is something
And
that
do you know how
happens.
angry people
Do you
get when
not
a gimmick
honest
changes?
what?
And do you know how angry people get when a well-known gimmick changes? I'm a pro wrestling fan. I've seen gimmick changes. They often
Right,
don't
but
work.
it sells. Don't you think they are benefiting from the outrage? Look at the Son of Kal-El. How many? It's on its third or fourth reprinting for issue number 1. It's on its second reprinting for issue 2 and 3. Outrage sells. They know what they're doing. Not only that, when they're talking about business, they want to make him a global hero, and unfortunately, that's at the age where we're at right now. They want to make him more appealing to a
He's
global
always
market.
he's always if we're still talking about Clark Kent has long been a global hero while still being an American hero.
Right.
Why can't he be both? That's my question. Why can't he?
Again, nobody's taking away his nationalism or whatever you want to call it. He's still American. I don't know. They didn't actually specify. I wish they would have, whether it changed for both or you know what I'm saying. I don't know which one, but I think they thought this was the time to introduce it since Earth technically does have a new Superman. So with new Superman comes new ideals. We see him working more with people all over the world, talking about specifically the what is it, Gamora? I think is the country that Jonathan is working with. So I'm
Marvel.
assuming that has more to do with it. And honestly, it's kind of when they're trying to, they've been doing this for a while, trying to appeal to a wider market. And I think this was their kind of final jump to do so.
And I have no issue with them appealing to a wider market. But appealing to a wider market does not mean that you need to disavow where you come
They
from.
didn't disavow anything. That's the thing. You keep saying disavow, but they never once said he wants nothing to do with America. He's anti-American. They just said it was a different thing. He's still from America. He's still from Smallville. Nothing's changed except for a saying that he will probably honestly never say. Like, they barely ever use that, which is why I don't understand they made it a big deal unless they wanted the outrage, which is probably my guess.
You're right about that. They probably do want the outrage, but here's the thing: if all they are going to do with Clark or any other character is just make changes to for outrage, guess what? That means that they are ultimately shooting themselves in the foot in the end because they are going for short-term gains, right? Instead of long-term sustainability. Yes.
Comics have always done that, though.
Is that a good idea? Maybe if
I mean, it's lasted 80 years. I mean,
they wouldn't be in the situation they're currently in.
I mean, the situation they're currently in, I did a video on not that long ago. They're pacing just as well with Rebirth and with 1997. There's in the last 25 years, their sales are right on par with the third best year. What's that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, you had said something about their pacing for just as well as they did in '97. I mean,
Yeah.
we all remember like the comics crash of the late 1990s.
97 was really good, and so was 2016, and then it's this year. So they're in the last 25 years. They're this year's ranking third
In what exactly?
in sales.
Overall?
Yes, I did a video on it. I can find it. It was numbers are from Comicron and ICV too. I did a video on it a week ago. talking about it, and the sales figures are all there. They are in the last 25 years. This year is ranking third. They're right behind Rebirth, and Rebirth sold great.
Yes, Rebirth was very well received. But here's the thing:
Yes.
even 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 if even if they have one good year, right? One good year is not enough to undo all of the problems that they've been having for several years now. Same way that if you're trying to say improve your health, one good meal does not suddenly make you healthy. It needs to be sustainable growth and improvement. Show
Well,
me
we don't
that.
know that it's not. We don't know that it's not. It is the first step to
Agree. But
improving.
But as to your point, all of this has been done before. So while it's the first step this time, it is not the first time this has ever been done. And history generally bears out that when you go for short term gains instead of long term sustainability, you tend to get not great results over the long term. Yes, sales can be high for the first 5 issues, but if they pan out and hit the floor for the next 10, have you really done well?
No, and the market will decide, and it'll get canceled, and Clark will go back to Superman. I mean, that that's what it's always done. If they don't sell, and typically we'll probably know by issue 10 because 1 through 5 is going to be way up because of the Jonathan Kent stuff. So by 10, if it's down, the market has decided they're not interested. And just like with other titles, it will get canceled.
Okay, but then you keep saying the market decides. What is the market? The market is readers. Shouldn't the
Right.
goal be keep readers happy and invested?
Right, but it also is, of course, you want to keep your demographic happy. You want to keep them listening, and that's really what they're doing. I know a lot of people don't see it the same way I do, but they still have Clark Kent Superman you can read. They still have Batman you can read. They still have all of the original characters you can read, and they're trying to get new readership in by introducing people like Jackson Hyde or like Jace Fox, who I'm not a huge fan of, and I'll admit that. But
Okay,
um, they're
Superman has
trying to keep those readers happy while
okay.
also bringing in new readers. You can't just focus on one demographic or your business will fail.
I agree, but how many new readers are they actually? Here's the question. Could you make a great point about how you cannot rely on one demographic? That is true, but is there any way that you know of to ascertain how many new consistent readers, not people who buy the issue one and then never continue, how many new readers who are going to be repeat customers? How many of them are they bringing in as opposed to the older audience who was already reliable, and how many of them they have pushed away? How many are you bringing in versus how many have you pushed out?
I don't think there's a way to actually tell that. I mean,
And that's my
maybe
concern.
if they did some sort of survey, but as far as pushing out old readers, I don't. Maybe they are, but all I see is a lot of outrage, a lot of people being mad about silly stuff, and then still buying the books. So, are they really
Yeah,
pushing them out?
yeah, but here's the thing. All you're seeing by your own admission is a very small subset of people. If one reviewer, let's say, buys a comic, right? And they say, I don't think this comic's good. I think it's woke or whatever it is, right? Their one opinion is going to be spread. So, for example, one person says it's bad, another 5 people may say, well, I like this person, I trust them. If they say the comic's woke, I'm not going to get it. It doesn't matter if a small amount of YouTubers, right, buy the book. The question is their audience going to
The
buy the book?
question is those people going to buy it anyway? We don't know that. So
That's,
that's
that's a good question.
irrelevant.
So that's a good question also, but that's also the question you can ask of this new audience that they're supposedly trying to pull in with this very strong, overt uh, uh, modern day politic current year agenda pushes, like plastering John Kent's sexuality all over the place. Are those
How,
people going to say?
how is that different than the way that comics have always moralized? How is that different than when we seen Denny O'Neil talk about the stuff going on in Ireland, the Civil War? How is that different than what we've seen from Denny O'Neil when it comes to talking about the Blackskins? It's just a different time period. It's no different than what we've seen done before, even when it comes to X-Men.
Let me ask you a question. Was
Yes.
Denny O'Neil's views used to literally market the book?
They didn't have the internet back then, so I
It
mean,
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if
I have no idea. I wasn't born yet. I don't know.
That's what I'm asking.
If the story's written well, it doesn't matter. It's going to sell.
Well, most of the time that works, but there are also instances where a story is good, but for one reason or another, it never gets a larger audience. But
Right, that's very true.
But to your point about X-Men, right? X-Men often gets associated with civil rights, but their broader themes were about being the outsider. That's what the mutants were. They were outsiders who exercised. Right. That's the thing. That's
But they
not.
also took on race issues and religious zealotry. They've dipped into the AIDS. They've dipped into all that stuff.
That is true. I agree with you. I've read those issues. But tell me of an X-Men issue that had a cover that marketed itself on those issues. The marketing.
I'm sure there's plenty. Are you serious?
Yeah, because we were talking about marketing, were we not? How they were marketing John Kent and other characters.
That's the picture of them kissing is not the cover.
That's still marketing, Tristan. Having
Right.
IGN.
What's the difference? What's the difference between that and Selena and Bruce getting married on the cover? Nothing.
That's a wedding issue, which is not common.
There's more than just wedding issues that they're on the cover, or Lois and Clark are kissing. There's no difference. That's marketing them getting married.
Which is a rare thing.
Right, but it still happens. Same with North Star. They marketed that on the cover. There is no difference.
What did they market with North Star specifically? Him kissing a man?
Him getting married. We were talking about getting married.
Okay. That's a special event, just like in real life.
So is Jonathan coming out.
Okay. Your average comic still does not market itself on the sexuality of a character.
Yes, we just talked about times when it does. We just talked about wedding issues when it does. We just talked about Kate Kane.
I said your average comic does not market itself. No. I never said it doesn't include those issues.
Right, so maybe this isn't the average comic, but it is no different than those ones.
I would disagree, but we're not going to see eye to eye on this.
How is it different than Selena or Bruce kissing on the front?
One is the confirmation of a romance, of a journey. One is promoting the supposed discovery of one's sexual orientation.
So the first time we ever saw Batman kiss Talia, that's us discovering that he was heterosexual. So that's a discovery. It's the same thing.
No, it's not.
It is. It's no different.
They're kissing?
I mean, maybe you can assume that he was hetero. Maybe. I mean, by default, I think people do, but it's not any different if it's his first kiss with a woman.
How many stories about Bruce Wayne have there ever been that were marketed on him discovering his sexual orientation?
When literally
discovering orientation, not being
yes,
in a
yes, that's exactly why
that he is straight.
That's exactly why they originally created Batgirl. That to market it that he was straight, because people were saying that it had gay undertones. That's why those characters were created.
Yeah,
so that's exactly the same thing.
Can I finish?
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Characters like Batwoman, the original Batwoman from the 50s, or Batgirl being made to dispel rumors that came from an outside source, the fans or the media of the day or whatnot, right, are not the same as telling a story in a book about a particular character coming to discover who they are sexually.
Yeah, it was Betty. What was it? Betty, I believe, was created, and Kathy created to make sure we knew they were straight. This is what this character was created to make sure we knew they were bi. How is that any different?
Because again, one was trying to dispel what fans were assuming, the other one is to confirm something that I don't think anybody was assuming.
Because they were assuming he was straight?
I don't know what people were assuming. One minute, John's in Super Sons, he's 11 years old, going on adventures. Next, he's 17, and he's
Right.
spending.
And that's Benda's fault. But what we're talking about is how is it different? Characters were literally created to make them straight, to make it known they were straight. And that's exactly why Jay was created, to make him know he was bi.
Well, first of all, have you ever actually seen him interact with another woman? Because the argument is, oh, he is a bi, but we have no proof of that yet. Have they introduced a female love interest as of yet to sort of grab his attention and sort of have a love triangle or something?
Yeah, he's kissed Saturn Girl before.
Okay, but is there, to your knowledge, do you think there is going to be any sort of third love interest that will be introduced? Since it is Tom Taylor's comic and they're making this big splash about it, do you think that at some point, since again the character is supposed to be a bisexual attracted to men and women, that they're going to introduce Saturn Girl or some other female love interest who will catch John's attention and pull him into different directions? He's in love with Jay, but he's attracted to this girl. Do you think Tom
Probably.
Taylor?
Why wouldn't they? We don't know that yet.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I'm asking you, because you're the one who has read the 4 issues. You would know much better than I do.
Yeah, but that Saturn Girl was in the future in Legion.
Okay, so that's the future that may.
So
or
we
may
already
not,
know he's interested in the future in women also. So yeah.
That's a future that also may ultimately be retconned, or a future that will never come.
I mean, maybe, but the Legion, he was with the Legion then, so we don't know. It wasn't Future State, which Future State is, we don't know for sure. But from what we're covering right now, yeah, that's going to happen, because that's why Clark Kent went off planet. And that all happened, was set up on Legion.
Okay. Like I said, we are just going to be at loggerheads about this.
Oh yeah, and that's fine, and that's why I invited you on, because I think you do a good job of debating your point. But yeah, I don't get why just because he's gay, it's different than Betty and Kathy Kane. It's very similar in nature. Back then when they were fighting against the Comics Code Authority, I understand that, and they wanted to make sure they knew that they were straight. That's exactly why Jay was introduced, so we knew he was bi, because we've already seen him kiss a woman before. So it's.
And the question is, will he kiss a woman again?
Well, we know he does in the future. I mean, as of right now, we know he does.
Come to pass.
Maybe, but as of right now, it is.
That he will be in a relationship with this Saturn Girl. As you have stated several times, it's comics. They can change things and do things
Exactly.
they want. So actually, nothing is set at the moment outside of the fact that we know he's at the very least interested in this Jay Nakamura character.
Right, but you have no proof to say that there's no way he's going to be never with women again.
I'm not saying he is. I just don't think Tom Taylor is going to depict that.
I don't know if Tom Taylor will, but he won't be on that title forever.
That's a good point.
Eventually somebody will come on and something will change, and it's unfortunately it's comics. That's just kind of how shit happens. Half the shit's been retconned, and you don't know what's straight with DC anymore. And then they introduce the Omniverse, and apparently everything matters. So I don't fucking know what matters.
You are absolutely correct about that. But that's the thing, right? It's a matter of, it matters if it alters something that you like. For example, you seem to be very on board with this by John Kent, and that's fine. But to your point, Tom Taylor can come off the book at some point. They could get a different writer, and that writer could easily retcon things so that John appears to the audience at large as heterosexual again, and then that may very well upset you because it's a change you don't agree with.
Why would that upset me?
Well, I'm assuming it would upset you. You've sounded a bit animated when during this debated time. So you're telling me that if that happened, you would be perfectly fine with it. You would have no negative opinion about them changing him from bisexual to heterosexual at some point in the future.
No, why would I care? As long as it's a good story, why would I care?
Because you seem to care quite passionately about him being bi at the moment, so.
No, I'm saying I have no issue with it. That's it. I'm saying that I don't care that he's bi, but the problem I have is when people equate it being something different than heterosexual couples. I think at a point everyone's going to see it the same, and I think that's going to take a long time. But if he goes back to being heterosexual and interested in women only, why would I care?
Okay, perhaps I misunderstood you.
Yeah, no, I don't care. I there's a bunch of my characters I love. I personally think Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy are amazing characters, and that was kind of a weird retcon with Ivy, right? But now, because they've told a good story, I have no issue with it. Now they won me over. You just have to, like Robert super chatted earlier. You have to, like Jeffrey Thorne said, you got to give the story time to tell out. And I think that's a problem with maybe the internet in general, is we're all so reactionary. We're all so mad at the drop of a hat instead of letting something play out and actually understanding maybe there's a meaning behind this arc. Maybe there's a reason for this. And we all give our opinions, and I do too. I'm guilty of it too. We all give our opinions at the drop of a hat, a lot of time misinformed or not knowing an entire story. And the internet, it's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And I think that's a lot of the difference between now and maybe in the 90s or in the 80s, is we're all able to share opinions, right? We're all able, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when you're giving an opinion without a full story is when it becomes a little disingenuous.
That's a fair point, but the interesting thing is that you mentioned how you're okay with what is it, Harley, I should say, Harley and Ivy, because they've actually built this up over time, right? And they've explored in the comics themselves. So what is wrong with other people like myself who actually want that for John? I started that out in the beginning of this conversation, saying effectively the same thing, that I didn't understand why they didn't do any sort of coming of age story to build up to this.
Well, that was on Bendis. Bendis is the one that aged him up. But as of right now, that's kind of what we're seeing.
I disagree, but okay.
Well, I mean, how can you disagree if you haven't read it yet?
Well, again, they've already reached the true love's kiss point, it seems. But okay, you have me there. But
True Love's Kiss, yes, in 5 issues, but that's spanning over weeks, right? It's not just something like, obviously we're seeing what's on the panel, but we don't know that that's True Love's Kiss. We don't know the context behind that kiss. We know nothing. We just know they kissed.
Aren't they effectively dating? I've seen them floating around and
yeah, they're flirting, but they're not like dating. They've been flirting.
Okay. Apparently, Jay basically has Kitty Pryde's powers. He can phase through stuff.
Yeah, I guess so. That was just introduced. It was very. I got. He's from Gamora, so we kind of got to learn why he's got that power. But yeah, he's able to do that. We'll have to wait and see why, though. I don't know yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know that. I would say it's worth checking out, but I would hate for you to read it and then be like, "Oh my god, she told me to read this and it was terrible." So I think it is.
No, I mean, I may check it out. I don't know. I mean, I don't hold a recommendation that I end up not liking against the person. Like, for example, back when Tom King was writing Mr. Miracle, I actually checked out the first 5 issues because Diversity in Comics was really high on it. I read it and I was not particularly impressed. Tom King's very sad
Girl,
and depressed.
that's like my top 3 favorite ever. I love that run.
I can't do it. I noped out at like issue 5. I didn't like the art. I don't mind darkness in a story. I like Hellsing, for crying out loud. I don't mind darkness in a story, but that was just plain hopeless. I cannot do hopeless.
That's what I loved about it. I love like theorizing, like what could happen. What happened? Is he alive? Is he dead? What? Like that's just always going to be one of my favorite.
If you enjoy it, that's great. But for me, I just felt very sad and kind of stupid after reading it. Like I don't know if I'm like just not smart enough to understand what he's saying. And I felt the same way when he was doing Batman. There were a few. I read like 3 issues of his Batman because I was thinking of doing a review, and I was honestly just dazed and confused.
He's very pretentious, isn't he?
I just don't like his writing.
He's very pretentious. But thank you so much for coming on. I'm gonna wrap it up.
Right.
And everybody, thank you so much. Like I said, her channel link is pinned in the chat. So make sure you guys check Jean out. She's wonderful. She has wonderful opinions, and I love being able to agree and to disagree with someone. So thank you so much, Jean.
I agree. Just because people don't always see eye to eye doesn't mean it has to be a war.
I missed the super chat. Oh, hold on 1 second.
Sure.
John's past was in Legion. I'm so sorry, Robert. I messed that up. So how was that past? He was older. I guess I would have to. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to miss anyone's super chat, and I can't get to it. I'll do a video with the super chats. Because we got into the discussion and I was really into it. I really didn't mean to miss anything. I'm sorry, Leo. I'm sorry, Robert. I will say something in the beginning of my next video when I can access them all, because I can't on my phone right now. It won't let me go up. But thank you guys so much. Is there anything you're working on that you want to plug, or anything for your channel?
I mean, just watch for videos. You know, I make videos when I can get around to it. And yeah, just like I said earlier, you know, my brother Jesse Wolf is a independent comic creator. He's got 2 series out. One is called The Elemental Conductors, and one is called Night Rain. So if you guys are interested, you can always look him up. But yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. And I'll send you that stuff.
Sure.
Why don't you send me how to get that? Because I would be absolutely interested in supporting someone that you think does a good job. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys check out Jean, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.